You wouldn't think you would get this information from a landlord, but the landlord told them that Lauren had died. So they are getting this news from the landlord 36 hours after Lauren had passed. Today, we're going to be talking about Lauren Smith Fields. And not only are we talking about Lauren, but we are also talking about a woman who died in the same town on the same day as Lauren. Let's start with Lauren Smith Fields. So Lauren was born on January 23rd, 1998 in Bridgeport, Connecticut, to her parents Chantel Fields and Everett Smith. Lauren has 3 brothers, Kyle, Lukeem, and Tavar. And Lauren was always a dreamer from a young age. She had big plans for her future. And after graduating Stanford High School, Lauren attended Norwalk Community College, where she was studying to become a physical therapist. Lauren really loved all things fitness, and that really started with running track in high school, but even after graduating, she maintained a steady gym routine. She was also very into nutrition and ate a plant-based diet to supplement her lifestyle. Lauren was one of those extremely goal-oriented people, and she was incredibly focused. She was known for putting up Post-it notes all around her bathroom with her current goals written on them. And some of her big goals were finishing college and also eventually becoming a physical therapist. And from what I found online, Lauren seemed to be incredibly close with her family, especially her mother, Chantel. Lauren was very active on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, where she would kind of document her life and her beauty routine.
So you're back with Lauren.
She did have a couple hundred subscribers, and she was definitely on her way to building a great channel. Her brother Tavar said that Lauren was just that kind of person who could always make you smile, always make you laugh. So on the afternoon of December 13th, 2021, super recently, Chantel had trouble getting a hold of her daughter. It's been reported that her family was trying to have some type of Christmas dinner at Lauren's apartment. And, that was coming up. It was December 13th at this point. So her mom was trying to get in touch with her to kind of solidify some of their plans. But when she contacted her, she didn't hear back from her daughter. And this was unusual for Lauren. So she texted her saying, "Are you okay?" And then said, "Please let me know." And after she sent her those messages, there was no response from Lauren, and her mom started to get really freaked out. Lauren was just not the type of person to ignore a text, especially from her mother. So that evening, around 9 p.m., they decided to go over there. Chantel and Lukeem actually went to her apartment to see if she was there. And when they got there, there was a note on the door that said, "If you're looking for Lauren, call this number." And when Chantel called that number, Lauren's landlord answered. The landlord said that they would be right down to talk to them in person. They quickly came down, and what she told them was absolutely shocking. You wouldn't think you would get this information from a landlord, but the landlord told them that Lauren had died. Lauren had died the morning before, December 12th. Lauren Smith Fields was pronounced dead at 6:49 a.m. on December 12th, 2021. So they are getting this news from the landlord 36 hours after Lauren had passed. There was not even caution tape around Lauren's apartment or on the door, nothing to signify that someone had just died there. And that made it even harder for her family to believe that this had really happened and to process it. Lauren's landlord gave them the contact information of Detective Kevin Cornyn from the Bridgeport Police Department. And they were hoping that he would be able to provide her and her family with some more answers. But sadly, this phone call did not give them any answers. It only made them more angry and confused. On the phone, the detective told them that Lauren had been on a Bumble date the night of December 11th. He told them that Lauren had been on this date with a 37-year-old white male, and that he woke up to find Lauren unresponsive, and he had called the police. And he also told them not to worry about this guy because he was a really nice guy. Now, obviously, when your child is found dead, you don't really care if the person they were found with was a nice person. You are going to want to know more information about them and want them to be thoroughly investigated, no matter who they are. They asked Detective Cornyn to come and meet them at Lauren's apartment so they could kind of get some more clarification and figure out where to go from there. And he agreed. However, 30 minutes went by, then 45 minutes went by, then an hour went by, and this dude never showed up. After an hour and 30 minutes, they decided to give him another call and ask where he was. Chantel said that he picked up the phone, said, "Stop calling me," and then hung up. And you guys, this is not the only time in this case that he hung up on her family. And because they had been told so little about Lauren's death and they still had so many questions, they called over and over again for 16 days trying to get a hold of Detective Cornyn or someone that could help them. It wasn't until December 29th when they went to Lauren's apartment to get some of her belongings and clear it out that they were informed that Detective Cornyn was removed from the case after messing up. And at this point, when they went to the apartment, it had been 2 weeks since Lauren died, and there was no sign at all that the police were planning to collect evidence or, process the scene as a crime scene. So her family started trying to investigate as much as they could. And inside the apartment, her family found a loose pill, and blood on her bed. The incident report also noted that there was a plate of food tipped upside down on the living room floor. So they decided to call up crime scene investigators and had to literally beg them to come process the scene. And eventually they did on December 29th that day. And when investigators arrived, they informed them that they would need DNA swabs from Lauren's family to move forward and that they would not be moving forward with the case or the investigation without those swabs. So it wasn't until more than 2 weeks after Lauren's death that they started kind of piecing together some of what had happened on that date. And this was coming from the guy himself. So like I explained earlier, Lauren was using the app Bumble. Bumble is one of the apps where women have to be the one to initiate the conversation. So Lauren must have been somewhat interested in this person. And she was matched with a 37-year-old white male, like I said. And I'm not able to use his name in this video because he is not even named a person of interest at the point where I'm recording this. I'm going to be referring to him as Michael. So it's hard to tell if Lauren was using this app to try to find a boyfriend or if she was just casually dating, but regardless of her intentions, the two of them set up their first date for the night of Saturday, December 11th, 2021. Now, according to Michael, Lauren and him had been chatting on the app for about 3 days prior to the date. And according to him, she was the one who invited him over to her place to finally meet up. Michael said eventually they decided to start watching a movie. And during the movie, Lauren had stepped out of the apartment to say hello to her brother who had stopped by to drop something off. After he dropped off whatever he did, Lauren went into the bathroom for, according to Michael, about 10 to 15 minutes. And after she was done in the bathroom, Lauren came back and finished the movie with him on the couch. And he said that he didn't ask her why she was in the bathroom that long. Then he said Lauren fell asleep on the couch, and after the movie, he decided to pick her up and take her to bed. And he also went to bed with her. And Michael also claims that he and Lauren did not have sex that night and that he never even took his clothes off. He slept in them. He says that he woke up at 3 a.m. to go to the bathroom. And when he did, he heard Lauren snoring in bed, so he thought all was good. And then just a few hours later, at 6:30 a.m., he woke up to see Lauren on her side with blood coming out of her nostril. And he said that he could tell she was not breathing. Michael said that he immediately freaked out and called 911, and that he was met by Officer Carla Ramelli at the apartment. Carla said that when she arrived, Lauren was not in the bed. She was on her back on the floor. She said there was no sign of life and that she confirmed that there was blood around her right nostril. Now, the incident report says that Michael was asked by 911 to start giving Lauren chest compressions, which is why she was moved off the bed onto the floor. Michael also stated in the incident report that Lauren had asked him for $40 that week to get her nails done. However, her mother, Chantel, says that this is not true, that Lauren never asked for money. So this is one of those details that has been hard to get an answer on. So obviously, Lauren's family is very suspicious of Michael at this point. But from the start, the Bridgeport Police Department has not even considered that Michael could have anything to do with Lauren's death. It's something that they just have discounted completely. They have treated the information that she was on this Bumble date as irrelevant to her case, which really doesn't make any sense. And again, when Bridgeport police were asked why they were not treating Michael as a person of interest, at least, they said because he's a really nice man. Obviously, this guy is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, of course. But I do think he's noteworthy in this case. The Smithfields family has hired an attorney named Darnell Crossland. And mainly that's because it's become increasingly clear that the police are not abiding by the law when it comes to handling Lauren's case. I mean, foul play or not, the police should have afforded her the same respect that they would any other victim. And members of the family have claimed that they were told by police that the reason they didn't contact them was because they already identified Lauren. They didn't need their help to identify her because they already saw her passport. They also found $1,345 in cash, and they never made any effort to contact anyone she knew. It's unbelievable. The police just assumed from the beginning that this was an accidental death. And so they treated it that way. They never collected evidence. They never followed any of the proper procedures they were supposed to, which to me is scary. But the police just decided to believe him at his word because he's a really nice guy. And they just dismissed the completely. It was never processed into evidence until thankfully recently it was. Now, Michael's lawyer said that he is not being considered a suspect, as we know. And even though he's not, he has been cooperative with the police every step of the way. However, the Smithfields family feels very strange about this cooperation because he has never even reached out to their family, not even with condolences or to maybe answer any questions they have. It doesn't necessarily mean he did anything, but I would say that that is kind of odd. The Smithfields and their lawyer are also extremely skeptical about Michael and the BPD because it's suspected that they might actually have a prior connection. This has not been confirmed, and of course, I do not intend to spread any misinformation, but their attorney Darnell has publicly said that there could be a connection, and I believe that it's important to at least include that. And 2 Connecticut detectives have been accused of mishandling the investigation into the deaths of Lauren and also Brenda, which I will get into next, and 2 of them have been suspended. Lauren's cause of death was ruled an accident as a result of acute and they are adamant that she was not a drug user, and it doesn't make sense with her lifestyle either. I mean, Lauren was super health conscious. She was a driven person, and involving herself with would have been the complete opposite of everything that she stood for. And of course, Michael's story from that night make Lauren look suspicious. You know, getting something dropped off to her house by her brother, then being in the bathroom for 10 to 15 minutes. It could have been. We don't know what Lauren was doing in the bathroom, but the police should not just be assuming that that's what happened that night. They should do a full investigation and make sure that she wasn't by someone else that night. But her brother, Lukeem, has clarified that he wasn't dropping anything off. In fact, he was picking something up, some laundry. He said that when he saw her, she seemed completely fine. She didn't seem really at all, and that if she was, he would have stayed around and made sure she was okay. So now let's talk about Brenda. Brenda Lee Rawls is a 53-year-old Black woman who died just 2 miles from Lauren on the exact same day. Now her case has gotten almost no coverage and no public outcry whatsoever. I don't think that's the fault of the people. I think it's the fault of the police and the media for not bringing it to people's attention. Brenda was born on December 2nd, 1968 in Bridgeport, Connecticut, where she spent the majority of her 53 years of life. Brenda's a very funny person, a very lively person. She was an avid member of her church and would frequently volunteer in her spare time, helping the homeless people in her community. She has 3 sisters, Angela, Dorothy, and Deidre, and her family says that she was an extremely hard worker. She had a full-time job working as a customer service representative and also lived a very healthy lifestyle. Not a lot of information besides that has been released to the public at this point, but considering the devastation that has been expressed by her family, I'm assuming Brenda was a lovely person who was adored by the people in her life. Now, just like in Lauren's case, Brenda's sisters noticed that she wasn't responding to their phone calls on December 12th. And Brenda was in pretty much constant contact with her sisters. They spoke like every day. So this was unusual for her. And when they didn't hear back from her, they started to get concerned. So on December 14th, two of Brenda's sisters, two of her nieces, and one of her niece's boyfriends went to her place to check on her. They went and knocked on her door. They kept on knocking, but there was no answer. And that's when they started to get really worried, and they started calling around to local hospitals. They called the police department. They even tried some funeral homes, and no one had any information about Brenda. Then they remembered that on the 11th, Brenda said that she was going down the street to a man's house, a friend of hers. So they ended up walking down to this guy's house to see if he knew anything about where Brenda was. And when they got there, this man told them that Brenda actually had died in his home 2 days prior. And this is the first that her family was hearing about it. The police never contacted them. He told them that when he woke up that morning, Brenda was in his bed, unresponsive, and that he had no other information about where she was now. He gave them Brenda's clothes and shoes, which he still had. The police didn't even take them in. And at that point, they're just trying to find her body. So they call a local funeral home, and they tell them that they should call the medical examiner's office and that they probably have an idea about where she is. And sure enough, when they called the medical examiner, she was there. They had not been notified at all that she had passed. Right now, it is not believed that these two cases are linked in any way, and it doesn't seem like they are. However, there are definitely some similarities here. And the biggest similarity is how they were handled by the police and the straight up just misconduct. The Rawls family didn't even learn the name of the detective assigned to the case until a few days after. Turns out it was Detective Angel Llanos with the Bridgeport Police Department, who was assigned to the case to investigate, but he made no attempt to contact her family, even though they left 4 messages for him. And once again, there was absolutely no investigation into her death. It appears that Detective Llanos didn't even file an incident report, and at this point, the family is not even sure if a 911 call was even made. And the man that Brenda was last seen with was apparently with her when she died, was not even brought in for questioning initially, and was not considered a suspect. And although the medical examiner has finally now released a cause of death for Lauren, nothing has been released as far as a cause of death for Brenda. In fact, the medical examiner's office said it's going to take 6 to 8 weeks before they have that information. Luckily, the Rawls family is also working with attorney Darnell Crossland to look into the misconduct from the Bridgeport Police Department, because they feel that because Brenda was Black and a female living in a low-income area, that police believed nobody would come looking for her if they just brushed her death under the rug. They feel that they have been completely ignored and that Brenda wasn't taken seriously, even though she was a loved member of the community. And like I said, as of the last week of January, it was announced that both Detective Kevin Cornyn and Detective Angel Llanos have been suspended, and an internal investigation into their conduct is currently taking place. Obviously, it could be proven that there was no foul play in one of these cases or both of them. We just don't know at this point. I'm hoping that with all of the increase in public demand for information in these cases and public outcry and outrage, that there will be more information coming in the future. There are GoFundMe set up for both of these cases. Luckily, Lauren's has gotten quite a bit of support. They have raised a large amount of money so far. Brenda's family has not gotten the same. And again, I think that's because a lot of people just don't know about Brenda's case. I send my condolences to these families. I want them to know that my Victims Advocate Forum is open and I am here to support them in any way possible. But that is it for me today, guys. I hope you have a good day. I hope you stay safe out there, and I will see you next time.